Guys, there's a conversation happening right now that many people feel, but very few want to talk about it. And it's when a crisis hits, some communities who've spent years, distancing themselves from Black Americans suddenly expect unconditional solidarity. Now, I'm not here to generalize or demonize anyone. Somali Americans, just like every other community, they are diverse. But we can talk honestly about long distance tensions because they didn't appear out of thin air. For years, many Black Americans have felt dismissed, overlooked, or even, judged by people who benefited from the doors their civil rights struggle opened. And now, in the middle of intense political pressure, Ilhan Omar says she's, Black. And suddenly, the Somali community is being framed as part of the broader Black identity. But to many Black Americans, this shift feels abrupt, too abrupt to ignore. This episode isn't about choosing sides. It's about consistency, respect, and showing up even when it's not convenient.
Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain.
Congresswoman, how do you respond to that?
Well, thank you, Anna, for having me. I would say the president's obsession with me and the Somali community is really unhealthy. It's creepy. And I hope that he gets the help that he needs. It sounds like he is trying to deflect from the failures that he's had as president. His immigration rates are not going in the way that he's expected. We know that the tariffs are not working to make life affordable for Americans. We know that he is afraid of what is in the Epstein files as he's fought to be the head of the pedophile protection party. And we know that right now he is being investigated for war crimes that he might have committed when he ordered what seems to be illegal attacks against boats in the Caribbean.
Your district has the largest population of Somali immigrants in the U.S., around 80,000 in the state of Minnesota. This isn't the first time the president has made derogatory comments about your community. Last week, he threatened to end temporary protected status for Somali immigrants in the state. He alleged without evidence Somali gangs are terrorizing the state. In his first term, he called the Somali resettlement in the state a disaster. Why do you think he's so focused on this community? And what impact does that kind of racist and dehumanizing language have?
He's always been a racist, a bigot, a xenophobic, and Islamophobic. We know that he called African nations a shithole in his first administration. We know that when he came down that escalator, he said he was going to stop Muslim immigration into this country. And so it is not surprising that he is going after Black immigrants in this country. And it's certainly not surprising that he's choosing a Black immigrant community that is also Muslim. But what I would like to say is that most of us are citizens. On our passport, it says we are nationals of this country. We love that Minnesota has welcomed us. Many of us have not been settled in Minnesota. We chose it as a home because the Minnesota people and the state is beautiful and very welcoming. And we are going to be here regardless of what the president has to say.
I agree. I love the Twin Cities. I love visiting your home state as well, Minnesota. Lots of good people there. Beautiful part of the country. Are you getting any support from Republican colleagues on this? Are you seeing anyone from the president's own party stand up and say, this kind of rhetoric isn't okay?
No, and it is not surprising because the Republicans have bend the knee to this president. They've welcomed his disgusting and deranged and dangerous rhetoric. They have propelled him into office. They have allowed for him, as a 34-time convicted felon, to become the president of this nation. And so I am not surprised, and I'm not expecting any of them to develop a backbone now and to stand up for their colleague or our Minnesota, Republican representatives to stand up for their constituents. And earlier you said I represent the most Somalis in Minnesota, and that actually is not a fact. Most Somalis live in the different congressional districts that are mostly represented by Republicans, including the Republican whip of the House.
The New York Times is now reporting federal immigration agents may soon be targeting Somali migrants in the Twin Cities area. What are you hearing? What do you know about these reports?
Well, over 90% of Minnesota Somalis are citizens of this country. And so we know that some people have been questioned. They have been ICE has made attempts to abduct and detain them. But a lot of Somalis, when Trump first got elected, decided to carry a passport ID because they knew that he wasn't only coming for people who were undocumented, that he would essentially come for immigrants who were citizens of this nation. And so a lot of them are very savvy, they're resilient, they're brilliant people who have figured out how to protect themselves.
I mean, you've already touched on this, but I do want to ask you a follow-up on the character and the contributions of your community, because the president keeps villainizing your community, dismisses contribution of immigrants in this country. What do you want people to know about the Somali community in your home state?
I mean, I would like them to know that we are the most generous people. We are one of the most friendliest communities. Again, it is why we made Minnesota home, because it fits with our character. Minnesota nice is not just something we say, it's something that is true. And Somalis are as nice as Minnesota is. We are, like I said, very resilient. We're very hardworking. And we are very patriotic. Minnesota Somalis have the highest level of people who have become citizens as immigrants in this country. And we vote, we contribute, we volunteer, and we run for office.
What's your message to the president right now in this moment?
I would say your message of bigotry is not working. Your intimidations are not going to work on the Somali community who have survived so much. And I would say that his deflection and scapegoating is also not going to work. Americans still remember the fact that his economic policies are still hurting them, that he has not kept his promise of keeping costs down, bringing down inflation, creating opportunities for job growth. And so that's what I have to say to the president.
Real quick before we go here, what is your reaction to the breaking news this hour that President Trump is pardoning your colleague, Congressman Henry Cuellar, who was indicted on bribery charges?
I think it is unfortunate in the ways in which the president is using his pardon. As you know, we like to think of presidential pardons as being investigated, being recommended. And we are seeing now that he's just doing favors to people that he likes, in the way in which he pardoned the former president of Honduras, who was a narco trafficker, who spent many years disappearing, terrorizing his own citizens, and who our own law enforcement and taxpayers spend so many dollars in investigating to get him to be incarcerated, and his 45-year sentence is now commuted, and it's unfortunate in the way in which the president loves people who break the law.
But Congressman Cuellar hasn't been convicted. He is a member of the Democratic Party. He's not part of the president's party. Are you surprised that the president would grant him a pardon?
I am not, because to this president, he pardons anyone that is friendly to him.
You think Cuellar is friendly to him?
we know that he doesn't go through a process. And I think it is unfortunate that we are not going to see the legal system play out in any kind of way for any of these people that he is pardoning.
I hate that I will never experience the happiness that Somali haters experienced when they actually thought the TPS program affected more than 9 Somalis. Like, they really thought that was it. All the Somalis are just going to disappear. Poof, all of a sudden, no Somalis. Cedar Riverside is Mexican neighborhood now, or maybe not even a Mexican neighborhood. But yeah, it would likely just become a Mexican neighborhood. Yeah, and then, of course, Somalis have to be buzzkills by informing them of how many people that shit actually affects. You should have just let them be happy, you know? Hey, how about this? You pretend to deport us and we pretend to be deported. Deal? Once again, for those who don't know, Somalis came to America in one big lump sum. Now, we came all at once in the late 90s, early 2000s. By the 2010s, 90% of us were citizens, and by the 2020s, 99% of us were citizens. The immigration process has nothing to do with us anymore. Right? It's done. It's ball game. You might have had something back in 2005, but it's 20 years too late. I promise you, the Trump administration tried to look at ways to deport us and found out they genuinely had nothing. Like, it's decades too late. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to collect welfare and impregnate a white woman.
You went to all this country and nobody could take you in. The United States took you in. And all you can do is to try to tear their country apart. All you do is to steal from them. All you do is to put your religion on them. Meanwhile, not taking into consideration that there are other African refugees here. You muddy the water for every other refugees. You come over here as a refugee, but you fail to realize that it's not a right, it's a privilege. Yes, when somebody opened their doors to you and say, come and live in my house, that the same way they open the door, they also have the right to kick you out. It's not a right, it's a privilege. You are not African American. You were refugees. You were refugees. Even your children born here can be deported. Because the citizenship law was not passed for you. It was passed for the African American and their ancestors and their children. So you and I, having it is a privilege. It's not a right. But well, you forgot all of that. You came into the country. You live on free food, free home, free education. Meanwhile, the Black American who fought for it suffered. They suffered. They hardly get the opportunity that you get. But in return, what do? You turn around and shout, Allahu Akbar. You shout, you want to bring Somalia to America. If you love Somalia that much, why don't you ask for voluntary repatriation? The UN can repatriate you to Somalia, any part of Somalia you want, and go fight and make Somalia a better place. But like I said, we immigrants will not be silent. We will speak against you. And for those from the Middle East, other Middle Eastern refugees will stand up. But I will say this, you Somalis have become an embarrassment for us Africans living in the U.S. You Somalis have embarrassed us Africans living in the U.S. You have embarrassed every other refugees from Africa that is living here on temporary status. Do you know that countries went through war and they granted them temporary status and they've been living here? Do you understand? When was the last time you saw Guinean trying to bring Guinea culture to America? When was the last time you saw Liberians, Sierra Leone, and Ivorians trying to bring their country culture over here to impose it on American? We don't. Only you Somali do. Only you believe that you must overthrow the government of America and turn America into Somalia and turn America into Islamic country. And for you, Omar, I pray you get deported, you and your brother. I pray that both of you get deported, and I pray you two be the first. And I appreciate the Trump administration for suspending the temporary protection status for all Somalis. And I'm glad that they did not say all. I'm glad that President Trump did not say everyone on temporary protection status. I'm glad that they selected you guys out. And it is time for the rest of us that are here from Africa on temporary protection status to distance ourselves from the Somali community for their behavior. They're not going to drag us into this. We are not here for that. We are here on protection and wanting to live a better life and help our family back home. So if you Somalis think that you're going to be the one that will cause harm to the rest of us African living here as immigrants, we will take the Somali community to court.
Now, let's be fair and honest. The frustration from Black Americans isn't coming from nowhere. It comes from years of seeing some immigrant groups strategically separate themselves from Blackness, culturally, socially, and even politically. Many Black Americans recall moments where they, were told, we are not like you, or we are not Black, or we don't have those problems. And whether that came from cultural misunderstanding, internalized narratives, or simple lack of exposure, it created a foundation of distance. So when political pressure rises, when deportation rhetoric gets loud, when communities feel threatened, and suddenly the same groups start saying, we are your brothers, we are Black too, it can feel performative, like identity becomes a jacket you only wear in the rain. Now, that doesn't mean Somali Americans don't face racism. They absolutely do. It doesn't mean they haven't built lives, communities, or contributed tremendously to the country. They have. But solidarity can only show up in a crisis. Black Americans aren't wrong for, asking hard questions. And Somali Americans aren't wrong for wanting safety and, support. But somewhere between those two truths is the real conversation we need to have. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just, a Somali, versus Black American issue. It's a repeating cycle across multiple immigrant communities. There's a pattern where some newly arrived groups try to distance themselves from the struggles of Black American in hopes of, avoiding the weight of anti-Black bias in this, in the US. It's a survival strategy and an understandable one on the surface, but it often comes with painful, consequences. When you are new, you are told, don't be like them. You're fed stereotypes about Black people. You hear messages that encourage you to separate yourself from, the group that actually fought for the rights most of you guys are enjoying. And for some, that message sticks. So instead of forming solidarity early, before the storm, people wait until the storm arrives. And that is exactly why this current moment is hitting so hard. Because now, when political rhetoric is targeting Somali Americans with, fear-mongering and impossible mass deportation threats, many Black Americans are responding with, where was the solidarity when we needed it? And that question doesn't come from cruelty or resentment. It comes from history, a long, painful one. For decades, Black Americans have been expected to be, the moral anchor for everyone's struggle. Show up for everybody, stand for everybody, vote for everybody's cause, and then watch some of those same groups disappear once their own situation improves. It's exhausting. It's, disheartening, and it feels like emotional labor with no reciprocity. So when Ilhan Omar suddenly emphasizes her Black identity in the middle of political heat, many people hear it differently, not as an expression of identity, but as a strategy shield, a survival tactic, a way to say we are part of the protected circle now. And let's be clear, identity is complex. She can be Somali, Muslim, African, and also Black. None of that is contradictory, but what matters is whether that identity was affirmed consistently or only moments of crisis. This is where accountability comes in. Accountability doesn't mean dismissing Somali Americans or blaming them for political hostility. It means acknowledging how inconsistent solidarity creates friction. If you distance yourself from a group until you need that group, the relationship becomes, transactional, not communal. And that is what many Black Americans are reacting to. At the same time, we can acknowledge that Somali Americans are facing very, real political pressure. Fear-driven rhetoric has consequences, even when the actual laws make mass deportation impossible. Citizens start to feel like non-citizens. People walk around with documents they don't legally need to, prove their belonging. Immigrants, especially Black and Muslim immigrants, become political talking points instead of human beings. That's not acceptable, and it's not something anyone should face alone. But solidarity cannot be a last-minute strategy. It has to be rooted in shared struggle, mutual respect, and honest effort. So here's the truth we often avoid. Black Americans and African immigrants should be allies. Their destinies in America are intertwined. Their challenges often overlap. Their futures could be stronger together than apart. But unity requires honesty. It requires acknowledging past harm, not sweeping it under the rug. It requires immigrant communities to, understand the history they step into and the shoulders they stand on. If you want support in the fire, you need to build the relationship before the flames. This moment right now is an opportunity, not to divide, but to reset, to acknowledge the mistakes, the distancing, the misunderstandings, and build something real. Because the forces targeting Somali Americans today can target someone else tomorrow. Solidarity is strength, but solidarity must be consistent. It must be genuine, and it must be mutual. That is the message here. Not to blame, not division, but truth. And truth is the only starting point for real unity. Well, guys, drop a comment. Let me know what are your thoughts. Also, remember to subscribe, like, and share as well. And until next time, bye-bye.